Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to the desktop for another rules breakdown. And this time we're going to be doing Traveller the New Era, the 1993 role-playing game from Games Designers Workshop. Now, we've done rules breakdowns for about 3 different versions of Traveller in the past. So this is number 4, because every set of rules is slightly different. But Traveller the New Era is perhaps the most different, because it had a bunch of ideas which were completely different from Mega Traveller, and they tried to adapt the rules. But by the time Mark Millar's Traveller came out, they abandoned those changes and went back to the more traditional system. But we'll see as we go through the rules. Now, skills work along with attributes. If we flick to page 113, we can see skills by skill clusters. So we've got a bunch of skills here. And you can see written next to each of them is an attribute. So painting is intelligence skill. Acting is a charisma skill. Acrobatics is an agility skill. And that's how it works. You're rolling a d20 and trying to get below a combination of your attribute plus your skill. So if we flick back a couple of pages, we can see task difficulty levels here. So for an easy task, your attribute and skill level will be multiplied by 4. An average would be times 2, difficult times 1, formidable times a half, and impossible times a quarter. So you are multiplying your attribute plus skill by the modifier and then trying to roll a d20 under it. So obviously when impossible tasks, your attribute and skill are a lot lower, so it's a lot harder to roll. In success, if you roll a 1, it always results in a success, and a task roll of 20 always results in failure, regardless of skill, assets, or difficulty levels. 1 always succeeds, 20 always fails. Initiative is dealt on page 264, so we flick over to there, and it is very, very different to other versions of Traveller. In other versions of Traveller, you would use the tactics skill. So whoever had the highest tactics would go first in combat, usually deciding for their entire group. So the players would go first or second, depending on their tactics skill, and then the NPCs would go in the other one, depending on whether they had a higher or lower tactics skill. However, in the new era, everybody has an initiative score, which is rolled at character creation. Now, civilian types roll 1d6 and divide it by 3 to decide on their initiative, and military types roll 1d6 to decide on their initiative. And that's how it goes. So everybody who's got initiative of 5 goes first, 4 goes next, 3, 2, 1. The only difference to this is if you have an initiative higher than 5, in which case you go in your initiative. So if you've got initiative of 6, then you will go in 3. You will go a second time in half your initiative. So if you had 8, you would go 8, 4. If you had 10, you would go 10, 5. But those are very unlikely and very high numbers. There's some example initiative ratings here for characters. Elite NPCs would go in 5, veterans 4, experienced 3, novices in 1. But that's how it works. You have an initiative ranking on your character sheet, and you go from high to low. Now, combat skills work exactly the same as other skills in the game. If we turn to page 275, we can see it explains that you're rolling your skill plus attribute against, or you're rolling under that with a d20. So the attribute for melee combat will generally be strength plus your skill, and for range combat it will be agility plus your skill. And the target number changes according to the modifiers that we saw back on page 108, was it? Yeah. So the modifiers there, the times 4 for easy shots, etc., depending on the range of your weapon. So if you're firing at short range, it's average. So the average target number doubles your skill and attribute. Medium range is difficult, which is times 1. Formidable is times a half. Extreme range is times a quarter. Now that's for an aimed shot where you've spent 1 action aiming. If you're doing a quick shot where you're just firing, all the difficulties are ramped up by 1, and you cannot fire at extreme ranges. But it's as simple as that. You're rolling your attribute plus your skill. You're rolling under it with a d20, applying any modifiers for range. So, damage. First of all, we need to know where you hit. So if we turn to page 269, we can see there's the personal hit locations. So if we grab a d10 and we roll it, we get an 8. And we can see we hit the right leg. Or if we were shooting for a multi-paired, a horse or something, we'd be hitting the hind quarter. Now, that allows us to work out what armor is used. But first we turn to page 352 to see the weapons. Because the weapon damage depends on what weapon you're using. So we can see that a 7mm carbine 5 ball does a damage value of 2. So that's 2d6 damage it does. So you would roll 6, 5, 11 damage from that gun. And each type has a different value written. Now these are usually d6s, but the rules do point out that certain weapons, it mentions lasers for example, will use different dice size, but it will say what dice size it is. Now, also, there are penetration ratings, which is how much armor it will go through. So we need to look at the armor. We can see what armor ratings each has and what locations they cover. So if you're wearing a helmet for the head or a mail vest for the body, etc. And the armor values come off the amount of damage. Obviously, penetration goes through that. Now, having determined how many hit points damage has been done to what location, we take them off the locations written here in the character sheet. Now, each location has a different amount of hit points, depending on your attributes. So the head has your constitution times 2, chest has strength plus con times 3, and all other locations have strength plus con times 2. But the effects of that damage depend on how much has been done. So if we turn to page 288, we can see the effects of the damage. There are 4 levels of wound severity: scratch, slight, serious, and critical. If one of your body parts has taken damage less than or equal to half its hit capacity, rounded down, it is scratched. Now, scratch wounds represent you being hurt and you lose your next action, but only once per 24-hour period. So if you receive multiple scratches, then you only have lost one action in that day. It's a bit of shock because you've been hurt in combat. Next, if one of your body parts has damaged more than half its hit capacity up to equal its hit capacity, it's a slight wound. Your initiative drops by 1. If you've taken your hit capacity to double your hit capacity, then it's a serious wound. Your effective strength is halved and various other effects. If you receive a serious wound on the head, then you drop unconscious straight away. If you get a serious wound on leg or arm, then you drop anything you're carrying. And finally, if you get double its capacity, then it is a critical wound. A critical head injury causes immediate death. Other parts cause immediate loss of consciousness and require medical attention within 10 minutes, or your character will die from loss of blood. Now, experience is dealt with on page 133, and it talks about where you can get experience. So the games master can determine it, or if he's not comfortable, the players can vote on it themselves, determining for each of themselves what they get by a group of peers. But spending experience. During the adventure session, each player should note with a pencil check mark, so it can be erased before the next session, the skills used during that session. Only marked skills are eligible for improvement by use of experience points. To improve a skill, the character spends experience points to buy new skill levels. To buy a new level costs points equal to its numerical value. For example, to raise astrogation level 4 to level 5 would cost 5 experience points. And it's as easy as that. You can only improve the skills you've used, and it costs the level you're buying up to in experience to buy that skill up. So that is Traveller of the New Era. Now, I have really skipped over the rules because there are a lot of more complex rules in here, especially in the combat section. I really kept it to the minimum, or I could have gone for hours because there are lots of modifiers in here and lots of different things you can do, maneuvers, etc. Now, I remember really loving Traveller of the New Era, but on rereading these rules, I do find them quite inferior to other versions of Traveller. Mega Traveller, Air Traveller, Mark Miller's Traveller all have far better rules than this. But I really do like this game. It's got a lot of fond memories, but I can start to see why some people like this version less. There's some interesting rules in there, but I really think they differentiate themselves in not positive ways from other versions of Traveller. But anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. And as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.